Well, right now, a warning for Southern California about the increased risk of a major earthquake. Experts say a series of small quakes along the San Andreas Fault could lead to a bigger one, and people in the area should revisit their emergency plans. This, of course, is the area of concern, as you're seeing on your screen, and it's no stranger to disaster. In 1994, the Northridge earthquake killed 57 people, injured thousands more, causing billions of dollars in property damage. Most recently, along the San Andreas Fault system, the same one we're talking about, was that earthquake in South Napa. And that happened in 2014, was a magnitude of 6.0, certainly caused a lot of damage as well. So tell us a little bit about the swarm that happened about 7 days ago. What about that swarm was notable?
So this was a small swarm, well, I say small, a few hundred earthquakes. The largest earthquake was only about a magnitude 4.3, but it was down in the Salton Sea, very close to the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. And when we see events like this, it makes seismologists get a little concerned because it's a lot of activity close to a big fault, and we know that that increases the likelihood of a bigger earthquake on the big fault. And so that's what gets us all a little alarmed.
I just wanted to ask you, Richard, before we let you go, one of the things I've seen written in a few different articles on this topic is that we're due, meaning that the San Andreas Fault is ready for another major event. Why is that?
Yeah, there's no question the San Andreas is ready for another big earthquake. The last major damaging earthquake in Southern California was in 1857. We think that the recurrence interval is much shorter than the time that's passed since then. Up in San Francisco, the Hayward Fault has a recurrence interval of about 140 years, and the last earthquake was in 1868. So in both cases, you know, we could argue that we're due for another earthquake. So again, this is just a good reason for us all to revisit our emergency plans, make sure we have our emergency kits, and think about how good the buildings that we live and work in are and whether they will survive the earthquake.
Good morning, it's 5:30. I'm Allison Cross.
And I'm Ian Wright. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start with Hurricane Matthew bearing down on some of the islands in the Caribbean this morning. That's as the storm tracks its way north.
And this is a storm that has gotten even Category 5 just a few days ago. Today it's a Category 4 as it takes aim at parts of Haiti and eastern Cuba. 10 News reporter Phil Buck is keeping a close eye on those areas this morning. And really, Phil, today is a critical day for some of these islands.
You've got that right. I mean, we just saw some of the pictures. You see more of them here. This is the most powerful storm that's come through this area in 7 years, and that means that everything that's been built in that time in some of these areas, the roads, buildings, entire communities, none of it has been tested by a storm this big or bad as Hurricane Matthew.
A Fox News alert: the governor of Florida declaring a state of emergency as Hurricane Matthew's path shifts. Right now, that storm is heading towards eastern Cuba after making landfall this morning over Haiti as a Category 4 monster, winds of 145 miles an hour. Parts of the island could get more than 20 inches of rain. That will cause catastrophic flooding. The storm also expected to hit Cuba and the Bahamas before moving north.
The freak weather system smashed Abbott Avenue just after 7 a.m.
It was like a bomb had gone off. It was just this massive bang.
It was almost like a tornado, and the tree just come crashing down like just a big thud.
All of a sudden, bang, and everything's missing.
You look outside and the pergola's like it is, and get up there, look on the roof, and half the roof's been ripped off.
Carports, pergolas and roofs were blown away.
Apparently our sheeting is two streets down.
It had blown the front door in, went through the lounge, the kitchen, and straight out the ceiling hole and blew the roof off.
The incredible winds blew over this massive gum tree. It landed on the carport next door, barely missing the neighbours.
We're just in that pergola part there on the house, yeah, so not too far away.
A lot of firewood. You want some firewood? Come and get some. It's free. Just bring a chainsaw.
SES volunteers helped residents with tarps.
Trying to patch things up as best as we can to prevent any water damage inside the houses.
Most are just grateful the worst is over.
We were just really lucky no one's been hurt. It got the teenagers out of bed, so it must have been loud.
The force of nature that plunged an entire state into darkness. Tornado-like swirls rip transmission towers right from the ground, causing an unprecedented collapse, leaving 1.7 million people without power.
I would have been 17 50 years ago, and I can't remember anything like this ever.
We've experienced some weather conditions that have not been seen before in this state, such as twin tornadoes, which ripped through the northern parts of our state.
The city was a scene of absolute chaos. With no traffic lights, cars were gridlocked.
Shocking, half hour to get to where we are and we're only 10 minutes from home.
Tried to drive home, ended up parking about halfway home and just walking the rest of the way.
Office workers poured onto the streets, people queued for buses knowing they might never arrive.
The city's gridlocked, so we can't get home.
No trains, trams or access to fuel.
The petrol stations are all closed and can't get any fuel.
Shops had no choice but to close their doors.
Oh, it's not that good. Power's off, fridge is off.
But a handful found creative ways to keep working, including Marcelina Pizza on Hindley Street.
And we try to do the best we can under the circumstances.
The blackout posed problems at dinner time.
Well, we had to have a barbecue dinner.
As people flocked to pubs and restaurants.
No point being stuck in traffic, we might as well come to the pub and have a drink.
In the whole of Adelaide, you can only get a schnitzel in Nord, so we're very, very happy with ourselves.
Intercontinental hotel guests took refuge at the convention centre.
They're feeding us and they're giving us drinks, so we're happy.
Candles were a saving grace for many.
We luckily have thousands of candles at our disposal.
But they were the cause of disaster for a family at Findon.
Well, it can be pretty dangerous, can't it, with people with candles?
At the RAH, nurses and doctors worked by torchlight. One woman was reportedly halfway through heart surgery when the lights went out.
All the lifts just stopped. Dark. Yeah, pretty dark, yeah. Yeah, it was dark.
We just went in the room to see someone and then people were having a bit of a hard time.
While patients transferred from Flinders Medical Centre had to be hand ventilated. Many elective surgeries have been postponed. Safety fears aside, others are just annoyed about their power bill.
I think with the prices that South Australia pay the most in the world, it's ridiculous. And then something like this happens.
Some have seen the lighter side to the blackout.
It's been really fun. We've just been entertaining one another.
But very few are smiling. Relief grants of $700 are available to those who've suffered financial hardship, but it's cold comfort.
Live to El Hacienel, some customers might be without power for days.
That's right, John, and unfortunately for them, there are no definite answers on when they'll be back on the grid. Around 60,000 people are tonight in the dark, and the outages stretch far and wide. Those in the north of our state are the worst affected by these blackouts. Landlines are down in Port Pirie, and large parts of the Eyre Peninsula are without any phone coverage at all. Relief centres have been set up in Port Augusta, Whyalla and Port Pirie.
Now we have extraordinary pictures of a mob of kangaroos trying to save themselves in the state's flooded west. They became stranded by the Murrumbidgee River near Griffith, forcing them to try to make it to higher ground. Some managed to get across, but the river is still rising. The flooding has so far cost farmers an estimated $500 million, with the damage bill expected to rise even further.
Thousands of college students poured out of their dorm rooms to march, chant,
I got a balloon for you. Don't you want a balloon?
and do some late night clown hunting. Rumors of clown sightings at Penn State spread on social media, triggering the clown mob. One student tweeted, "The clowns have come to Penn State. This is not okay." And the school newspaper shared this photo of a clown projected onto campus apartments. Clown phobia is now sweeping campuses across the country after what authorities are now calling a series of social media pranks gone awry. At Merrimack College in Massachusetts, the campus was on lockdown after a Twitter report of a clown with a pitchfork in a dorm.
2 schools closed because of that threat. Live outside Reading High School, they have about 1,600 students. And across the street is Mount Notre Dame Academy with 700 students. No one went to school today. Now, parents probably woke up a little confused by the bizarre message that school was closed because of a clown attack. It didn't exactly happen here on school grounds, but at an apartment less than a mile away.
Chaos in South LA as protesters spill into the middle of Western Avenue. Helicopters were overhead as people danced on cars, tagged a nearby strip mall. ended donuts feet away from the crowd. It started as a memorial and candlelight vigil for 18-year-old Carnell Snell Jr., who was shot and killed by police after a chase yesterday afternoon.
The young man jumped the fence right here, this gate right here, and the police were in pursuit.
Today, ABC 7 got a first-hand look at the scene where Snell Jr. died.
When the police came up to the fence, they began firing. They fired 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots.
A seventh pierced this window. The owner of this property, 2 doors from where Snell Jr. lived, didn't want to be identified, but walked us through the scene.
He fell right at the entrance door to the washroom, and they drug him up to the front steps here, which is about 20 feet, and that's where he died, right on the steps here.
Police say they found a handgun at the scene, but haven't provided any details on the shooting itself. Friends and family say it was unjustified.
We're out here because the police are killing our people over and over again.
Imani Turner says her friend did not deserve to die, and like many angry protesters taking to the streets, says enough is enough.
As a community, we want to come together. We want the police to stop, or we're going to have to do something about it. Period. Like, what, y'all want a war with us?
And parents are demanding answers after their kids were sent home with this white privilege survey. Seniors at a high school, at Oregon High School, asked to react to a series of racially charged statements. One example, because of my race or color, I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed.
Next tonight, outrage over newly released video in North Carolina. Officers responding to a 911 call of a suspicious person, then taking him down, even though that man told them he was waiting for his mother to come home. Well, tonight, city leaders are now calling on the DA to reconsider the decision not to press charges against those officers. Here's ABC's Steve Osunsami.
Greensboro police are saying that this disturbing video needs context, but to so many tonight, this looks like plain misuse of force and an outrage. The call on June 17th begins peacefully with Dewan Yorsay sitting on his mother's front porch. Video from police body cameras shows 2 officers responding to a call about someone breaking into the home with a shovel.
You do believe me, right?
For several minutes, Yorsay tries to explain that he's locked out, it's his mother's home, and he's struggling to reach her on the phone. When he shares he has a criminal record, the officer's suspicion grows. He again suggests they head to a neighbor's who can confirm he's no crook. And with this touch,
sit down.
It's clear he's not leaving the porch.
I just said sit down. But why are you talking to me like that, bro?
But what appears to push Officer Travis Cole too far is when Yorsay starts calling friends for help.
The police is over here. They harassing me.
All charges were dropped, and both Cole and Officer Charlotte Jackson resigned.
Keep in mind, I haven't done anything. I wasn't doing anything.
Police confirmed they later discovered he had 2 warrants out for his arrest. The prosecutor is refusing those calls tonight to re-examine the case.
If your pet has a microchip and it runs away, you probably assume that you can easily find it. Well, an Auburndale woman says animal control put down her dog despite it being microchipped. 10 News Polk County newsroom reporter Grady Trimble shows you what she wants you to learn from her heartbreak.
Christy Durham loved her 3-year-old special needs beagle as if he were her child. When she moved from Kentucky to Florida, Lefty came too, but she was worried sick when he ran away.
I've rescued animals for the last several years, strays and such, and I just prayed that I would be fortunate enough to get back some of that goodwill and get my baby back.
She searched for Lefty, posted online, and called animal control, but didn't have any luck. So the next morning, Durham's husband comes here to animal control, hoping that somebody found Lefty and brought him here. When he goes inside, they tell him that Lefty's already been put down.
It's heartbreaking, and nothing's ever going to bring my baby back, and he was my baby.
Animal control says their vet determined Lefty was sick.
This was not a healthy animal. This was not an animal she felt would benefit from any sort of medical help or attention. She felt it was in the dog's best interest to be euthanized.
Before doing that, Animal Control says they scanned Lefty's microchip and found it was registered with this company, 24 Pet Watch. But the phone number under Lefty's name was wrong, and the address was still in Kentucky.
That's something that we can't fix or control. That was a bad number at a company that we don't use.
No one else should have to ever go through this again.
Durham hopes Animal Control and other pet owners learn from her story to make sure your pet's microchip is up to date. In Polk County, Grady Trimble, 10 News, WTSP.
24 Pet Watch did get back to us late this afternoon, and they say that they regularly have pet owners confirm that their account information is up to date. Meanwhile, as though this is consolation, Animal Control is letting Durham adopt a dog for free if she'd like to.
How can this unspeakable carnage stop? You know, the United Nations estimates that 275,000 people right now remain trapped in Aleppo. Can they be saved? For joining us now for more, and this is Jim Walz, international security expert for MIT Security Studies program. You know, Jim, this is it's just beyond comprehension. We just saw a little boy running from a bombing in the smoke-filled street. Right at this moment, families are sitting in dark rooms. They have no electricity. They are waiting for the bombs to fall and wondering if they're going to die. And the world and we are helpless to stop Russia and Syria. What specifically, if anything, can we do?
Unfortunately, Eric, you're right. It's not just a humanitarian crisis. I think it's a set of war crimes. Certainly, by the Syrian government, has repeatedly committed war crimes during this war, using chemical weapons and fuel arrow bombs. And now I think there's strong evidence that Russia has violated international law. Bombing hospitals, targeting civilians, that is a complete break with international law or decency.
The Washington Post had a front page piece of the day. Let me read you one paragraph of that. It is just astounding about what's going on in there. This is, quote, this is from people there. Sometimes we hear the pilot tell his base, we see a market for the terrorist. There is a bakery for the terrorist. Is it okay to hit them? They say, okay, hit them. Every time they use the adjective terrorist, it is devastating and depressing beyond belief. You are pulling corpses from the rubble. You don't know if one day that body will belong to your sister, your brother, or your friend. I mean, can't, in the future, potential charges be brought? Or, as I said at the beginning of the segment, sadly, we again have another level of carnage that's just totally beyond belief.
Well, Eric, I hope so. I hope those responsible, including Assad and including Russians giving those orders, are held accountable before the International Criminal Court and face sanctions, imprisonment, and all the punishments they deserve. It's more likely that that will happen to the leader of a smaller country like Syria than of a major player like Russia, but I would certainly support that.
In South Africa, protests over a rise in university tuition fees have escalated. Here at Wits University in Johannesburg, the rally turned violent as police carried out a court order against public gatherings on the campus. At least 2 people were arrested.
We've just been opened fire with stun grenades, tear gas, totally unprovoked. We were just marching as students. They've now trapped us in a small space, and we are non-violent.
Some demonstrators attacked police vehicles with rocks, while police used stun grenades, rubber bullets and tear gas on the crowd. Over 20 years after the end of apartheid, there's still disparity in South Africa, and the rising cost of higher education is too steep for many black students.
Hey, have you ever heard of sprites before? That's what you're looking at right here, and I've got to tell you, these couple of pictures here have to be some of the better examples I've ever seen of actual sprites that have been photographed. Now, these sprites are associated with Hurricane Matthew. They were taken from Puerto Rico from a distance, and there's a reason why you can see them from a distance. That's probably the only way that you'd be able to see them. First of all, let me just talk about a little bit, at least what we know about sprites, okay? And there's still a lot of research to be done. Here's just a little example from a little while ago that was taken from the ISS, so this is not actually from Hurricane Matthew, but look at the cloud top here, okay? So you've got lightning that's going on in the thunderstorm. This is probably about a 40 to 50,000 foot tall storm, and then look how high above that the sprite is actually happening. So we know that the sprite is happening at the same time as the lightning. It's associated with that positive discharge, the cloud-to-ground lightning that's going on, but the sprite happens about 30 to 50 miles high up in the air. Now, Hurricane Matthew is really far away from Puerto Rico right now, okay? So remember, those pictures were taken from Puerto Rico, looking toward the south and west. That's probably the only reason he could see the sprites in the first place, okay? Because if the storm was right on top of him, think about it, you wouldn't be able to see above the storm, but from that distance, you can see that. Let's take a look at those pictures one more time, Mike. They are absolutely amazing. Just soak that up. Not very often you get to see pictures like this. That is incredible stuff.